Breaking news today: the conflict in Ukraine. Where do we stand now? Despite Russia's nuclear rhetoric, a spring offensive appears to be on the horizon as Western weapons flood into Ukraine. Main battle tank of British origin, the Challenger 2. Militia AMX-10 tanks from France. Leopard tanks and Marder light infantry fighting vehicles manufactured in Germany. Stryker armored personnel carriers in the United States military. Extra Leopards from the Iberian Peninsula. At a seminar on the strategic lessons of the war in Ukraine hosted by the Fondation Jean Jaurès in Paris, former Ukrainian defense minister and director of the Center for Defense Strategies in Kyiv Andriy Zagorodnyk said, Ukraine is collecting forces for a counter-offensive in the spring. Ukraine hopes to repeat its successful use of surprise in its lightning operations last September, when it retook control of large portions of the Kharkiv and Kherson regions. To build a substantial force capable of breaking through the front lines, Zagorodnyk says, we're receiving a lot of equipment and support from the West. Zagorodnyk claims the Russian offensive has stalled and that Russian forces continue to take hundreds of casualties daily. Putin is betting that his resources are greater than Ukraine's and that the West will tire of the conflict. The scorched earth strategy has left much of the eastern Donbass region in ruins. Although the West has more resources than Putin, we can only use a small fraction of them. It is our responsibility to hasten the end of the war's active phase. We hope to drive them out of Ukraine this year, thanks to the centralized nature of the Russian command structure and almost perfect intelligence, as the country's former defense minister put it. The exact locations of their platoons, tanks, and armored vehicles are known to us. We keep track of everything going on in the trenches. We know exactly where they are putting down roots, so we can launch surprise attacks. Zagorodnyk concedes that the upcoming spring offensive won't be enough to free Ukraine. 1 or 2 brigades will be equipped with 150 tanks promised by Western donors. The standard military formation in Ukraine consists of brigades of 3,000 men each. Zagorodnyk is disappointed that Western bureaucracy has repeatedly slowed the delivery of military supplies. A perceived but unfounded escalation risk, Zagorodnyk says, often holds suppliers back from moving forward. If the tanks had been committed last June, they would have been delivered and we would be progressing with the counter-offensive already. Constantly maintaining deterrence is difficult. 6 months ago, tanks were seen as escalatory. The use of rockets was only making the situation worse. The use of even common weapons like HIMARS, multiple rocket launchers, was seen as escalatory. As soon as it's finished, we say, okay, and things progress. But you could have done this 3, 4, or 5 months ago. I predict that by year's end, we will see significant innovations that were unthinkable just a few short months ago. Zagorodnyk is confident that Russia will not actually use nuclear weapons despite its repeated threats. With Russia, you can't get away with strategic ambiguity. They need to know the full extent of the consequences, he says. Both the United States and China have made it clear what would happen if Russia used nuclear weapons first. Russia has been warned not to do so by historian and strategist Michel Goya, a retired colonel in the French Marines, at a recent seminar. Is it worth alienating China and the rest of the world? Only the possible loss of Crimea, in Putin's mind, could justify the use of nuclear weapons, as described by Goya. While the Ukrainian resistance was strong, the Russians were able to occupy large portions of the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions in the month following their full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. During the second stage, Russia invaded eastern Ukraine and attempted to immobilize the country with missile strikes, eventually taking control of Mariupol, Severodonetsk, and Lysychansk. An infantry company was lost for every square kilometer, a huge price to pay, as Goya puts it. The Ukrainian army reorganized around newly acquired Western weapons and retook thousands of square kilometers in the Kharkiv and Kherson regions in the third phase, at the end of the summer of last year. Putin let Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagner mercenary group do as they pleased. In December, Russia attempted to destroy Ukraine's power grid while deploying an additional 300,000 troops to the Donbass conflict zone.